Now, speaking of which, somebody said that they had heard from somebody that it was not worth protecting American democracy because we weren't a democracy any longer. We are an oligarchy. This is actually something I've talked about a lot. I just mentioned the fact that between 1981 and 2021, $50 trillion moved from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. I will point out that that happened under the aegis of what is called neoliberalism. Neoliberalism was the idea that markets would order society and that the policies that presidents until 1981 had put in place to regulate business and to provide a basic social safety net to make sure that we didn't have that, what economists call the great divergence in wealth, happen. In fact, we had a compression of wealth, what economists call the Great Compression. That does not have to be that way, and that neoliberalism is ushered in by the Republican Party. It's adopted by the Democratic Party for a number of reasons, although they never really marry themselves to it entirely. They are generally trying to work within that system because it was so popular at the time, and because the Republicans kept insisting that they were socialists or communists if they didn't agree with it. Democracy does not have to be that way. Our country does not have to be that way, and that's what Biden and Harris set out to prove in 2021, was that, in fact, democracy could work for ordinary people. So they began to break up the big monopolies. They began to invest in the middle class. They began to try and make sure that the country did work for ordinary Americans. And they've done a bang-up job of it if you look at the fact that if you are in the top 20% of Americans, in fact, your wages have not kept up with inflation, but if you're in the bottom 80%, they have. You are better off today than you were even before the pandemic. Let's just cut the pandemic out of everything. And again, worth mentioning that Bill Clinton said accurately at the DNC that between 1989 and the present, there have been 51 million jobs created in the United States. 50 million of them under Democratic presidents, 1 million of them under Republicans. And is America an oligarchy now? The distribution of wealth in the United States in 2020 was extreme. It rivaled that of the 1890s or the 1920s or the 1850s. It does not have to be that way. And that's one of the things that's on the table right now. Are we, in fact, going to use the United States as a piggy bank for a very few wealthy people? Or are we going to restore a world in which the wealth is much more evenly distributed based on the actual work that people put into our society? And by that, I mean, you cannot convince me that somebody who, is making however many $1 billion a year is worth more than a janitor. You just can't, So that's, or a teacher for sure. So that's, are we an oligarchy? Not yet. We are, or at least we have been very close to it. We still can get that. We still can return democracy to this country, but it's going to be a close thing. There's a reason that the very wealthy people are putting their money behind Trump. It's a reason that Elon Musk is throwing everything he's got behind Trump. There's a reason Peter Thiel is behind J.D. Vance. They want to take over the country, and this is our moment to stop them. All right.